When a 9-year-old boy stood in the cold street holding two tiny toy cars, no one expected what he whispered next. A trembling voice, a breaking heart, and a truth that even the Hell's Angels couldn't ignore. He said, "Sir, please buy my toy cars. My mom is starving." And that one sentence changed the entire biker world. Backhand index pointing right before we begin. Please subscribe to Biker's Hype and support stories that reveal the power of real biker brotherhood. Backhand index pointing right like and share this video with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive. The story begins, the sun had just dipped behind the old steel factories, leaving a pale orange glow bleeding across the cracked streets of Ironwood Town. Cold wind swept through the alleys like reminders of everything this place had lost: jobs, families, warmth, hope. Lilian, a 9-year-old boy with messy hair and eyes far older than his age, stood beside a broken street lamp. The light flickered above him, on off, as if deciding whether this little boy even deserved to be seen. In his shaking hands he held two small toy cars. Not new ones, not fancy ones. Paint-chipped, wheels loose, but his last possession, his last chance. His mother, Sophia, lay inside their tiny one-room apartment across the street, weak, dizzy, starving. She hadn't eaten properly in 3 days. Her illness was getting worse. And Ion, he was just a child, but he carried the weight of a grown man. And today he decided he would do anything to help her, even sell the only toys he had left. The first refusal cars passed by him, splashing cold, muddy water near his shoes. People walked past, pretending not to hear him, not to see him. "Excuse me, sir." His voice cracked as he lifted the toy cars. The man didn't even slow down. "Just $1. Please, my mom." A woman walked by, pulling her purse close. Ion swallowed the lump in his throat. His fingers were numb from the cold, his lips trembling, his small chest rising and falling with each anxious breath. But he didn't go home. Not yet. He couldn't and he wouldn't. In a machine. The Hell's Angels arrived far in the distance. A deep thunderous rumble echoed through the street. Not thunder, not trucks, motorcycles, and not just any motorcycles, Harley-Davidsons, ever loud, roaring like metal beasts, announcing their arrival long before they appeared. The ground vibrated. Windows rattled. Cats ran. People turned. The Hell's Angels were coming down Main Street. Leading them was Reaper, a 6'4", bearded monster, a man whose leather vest carried the iconic flaming skull patch. He looked like someone you'd never dare approach. But Ion didn't know that. He just knew that these men might be his last hope. He slowly stepped forward, clutching his toy cars, heart slamming inside his chest, and whispered to himself, "Please, someone help." The unexpected encounter, the Hell's Angels rolled to a stop outside Dust Devil's Bar. Engines fell silent one by one, like a pack of wolves settling down for the night. Reaper swung one leg off his Harley and removed his helmet. His long, rain-damp hair fell to his shoulders. That's when he saw him, the tiny boy, standing alone, trembling, holding two faded toy cars like treasures. Reaper narrowed his eyes. Something was wrong, very wrong, that he slowly approached. His boots echoed across the empty street. Ion looked up, and for a second, just a second, he forgot how to breathe. This man was huge, terrifying, a giant carved out of leather and steel, but Ion didn't step back. He stood there, shaking, waiting for his chance to speak. Reaper stopped in front of him. "Kid, you lost?" Ion swallowed, lifted the toy cars with both hands, and whispered, "Please, buy my toy cars. My mom is starving." The world froze. The street quieted. Even the other bikers turned toward the small voice. Reaper felt something crack inside his chest, a place he thought was hardened long ago. Reaper kneeled slowly. He bent down on one knee, so he wasn't a giant anymore, just a man looking into the eyes of a child who had forgotten what it meant to be a child. "What did you say, son?" Ion's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't break. "I don't want money for myself. I just need to buy food for my mom. She hasn't eaten. She can't stand up. I sold everything else. These are the only toys I have left. Please take them. They're good cars. They still work." He rubbed one nervously. "Please, sir." Reaper's throat tightened. This boy wasn't begging for toys. He wasn't begging for games. He wasn't begging for himself. He was begging for his mother's life. Reaper stood up slowly and turned toward his crew, and no words were needed. The Hells Angels understood. This was not just a boy. This was a brother's son, and no one in their world ever let a brother's family starve. Reaper looked down at Ion again. "Where's your mother?" Ion pointed across the street. Reaper nodded once the storm had started inside him, the storm the whole town would feel. The walk toward the apartment, Reaper looked at his men. No one rides. We walk. When the Hells Angels walk, you know something serious is about to happen. The ground seemed to tremble as the massive group followed the tiny boy across the street. People stopped and stared from windows. Some whispered. Some hid, because nobody had ever seen the Hells Angels follow a child. Ion led them to a small, broken, dimly lit door. Paint peeling. Rust on the hinges. He looked back nervously. "Please be quiet. My mom is very sick." Reaper placed a gentle hand on Ion's shoulder. "Lead the way, son." The boy pushed the door open. A cold draft rushed out. The room inside was darker than the street. There was no electricity, or maybe the bulb had died long ago. On a thin mattress beside the wall lay Sophia. Pale, weak, eyes half open, breathing shallow. Reaper froze. He had seen death before. Seen people starving. Seen suffering. But seeing a mother fighting to stay alive while her tiny boy tried to save her, that hit him harder than any bullet ever had. Ion rushed to her. "Mama, I brought help. Please wake up." She gave the faintest smile. Reaper makes a decision. Reaper turned toward his men. His voice dropped into something dangerous. Nobody leaves. Not until this woman is eating, breathing, and standing again. The Hells Angels nodded, and no questions. No hesitation. They split into teams instantly. Like a military operation, point one group went to bring food. Another went for medical supplies. Another for blankets, clothes, water, vitamins. Reaper stayed. He knelt beside Sophia and gently lifted her head, placing a pillow underneath. She tried to protest. "Sir, please don't." "I don't have money to." Reaper cut her off softly. "You don't owe me anything. Your boy asked for help. And when a child asks, a real man listens." Sophia's tired eyes drifted to her son. Ion was crying silently. Reaper rested a large hand on the boy's back. "You did good, Ion." Ion wiped his tears with his sleeve. "I just don't want to lose her." Reaper's jaw tightened. "You won't." The Hells Angels moved like a silent army inside the small apartment. Within minutes, the room that once smelled of dampness, sickness, and hopelessness began to feel alive again. Reaper stood at the center of the room, arms crossed, watching his men return one after another. Food, medicine, blankets, fresh clothes, water, a portable heater, all placed gently near Sophia's bed. Ion stood close to his mother, holding her hand with both of his voice barely a whisper. "Mama, please eat something, please." Reaper removed his leather vest and placed it over Sophia's feet like it was a sacred cloth. He didn't care if anyone saw. This wasn't about pride. This was about family. A family he had just adopted. Sophia eats for the first time in days when the bikers, Tank, returned with warm soup from a nearby diner. "It's hot." "Be careful," he murmured softly, the gentlest he had ever spoken in his life. Reaper helped Sophia sit up. Her hands trembled as she reached for the bowl. A spoon clattered against the floor. Ion quickly picked it up. "Here, Mama, I'll help you." Together, they guided the spoon to her lips. When the warm soup touched her tongue, her eyes filled with tears. Not because of the taste, but because someone cared. Reaper exhaled slowly. The tension in his shoulders eased for the first time since he walked through that door. "You just keep eating," he said softly. "We got everything else handled." The truth comes out as Sophia gained a little strength. Reaper asked gently, "What happened? Why haven't you eaten?" Sophia hesitated. But Reaper wasn't the kind of man you could lie to. He cared too deeply. Finally, she whispered, "My landlord, he took our food money. He said if I didn't pay extra, he would throw us out." A dangerous silence fell across the room. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. Reaper's eyes darkened. "What's his name?" Sophia hesitated again. Ion stood up, anger burning in his tiny chest. "Mr. Dalton, he said if Mama doesn't pay, he will take our home. He scares her. He scares us." Reaper didn't blink, he didn't breathe. He just turned his crew. His voice was low. "Deadly, get him." The biker walked to justice. The Hell's Angels didn't run. They didn't speed. They walked a thunderous procession of leather, boots, and fury marching toward a single destination, the landlord's office 3 blocks away. People peered through windows. Doors slowly cracked open. The whole town knew what was coming, and they stayed out of the way. Inside the office, Mr. Dalton was counting money, piles of it. When the door slammed open so hard the glass cracked, he jumped, his face draining of color. "W, what is this?" "You can't just—" Reaper stepped forward, towering over him. "You took a starving woman's money." Dalton gulped. I didn't know." Reaper grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall so hard the room shook. "You knew?" His voice was a growl. "You knew her son was selling his toys in the cold. You knew she was sick. You knew she was starving. And you still took her money." Dalton stuttered, shaking. I'll give it back." Reaper leaned closer. "You're going to give back 10 times what you stole." Dalton nodded frantically. Tank and Bones emptied Dalton's drawer, counting every bill. When they left, the landlord was on the floor, trembling, promising he'd never bother Sophia again. Reaper didn't look back. To return Ion's home when the Hell's Angels returned, Ion ran toward them, his voice trembling with fear and hope. "Is everything okay? Did he hurt you?" Reaper chuckled softly, the first time Ion ever heard him laugh. "Kid, nobody hurts us, but we made sure he'll never hurt you again." He placed a thick envelope of money in Sophia's hands. Her eyes widened. I can't accept this." Reaper gently held her wrist. "You're not accepting charity. You're accepting respect." Sophia broke into tears. Ion hugged her so tight, she went slightly to a new beginning. The Hell's Angels stayed for hours. They cleaned the apartment, set up the heater, stocked the shelves with food, filled the cupboard with medicines, washed dishes, repaired the broken window, even fixed the flickering bulb. The apartment, once filled with shadows, now glowed with warm light. Finally, as the moon rose high above the town, Reaper knelt down at Ion's height. "You ever need anything, you call us. Understand?" Ion nodded rapidly. Reaper placed one of the toy cars back into Ion's hand. "This isn't for sale." He smiled. "This is a reminder that you saved your mother's life today." Ion cried silently. Reaper hugged him, a giant and a child, a scene no one in the Angels ever forgot. The next morning, the surprised one woke up to the sound of engines. Dozen he rushed to the window. Outside, the entire road was filled with Harleys. The Hell's Angels had returned. Reaper stood in the middle, holding something shiny in his hand. Ion opened the door and stepped outside barefoot. Reaper lifted the object, a brand new set of toy cars, a real collection, worth more than Ion had ever imagined. "These are for you," Reaper said, "because no kid should ever have to sell his childhood." Ion burst into tears and hugged him again. Sophia, now stronger, stood in the doorway with her hand over her mouth, weeping. Reaper put his helmet on, started his Harley, and said in a deep voice, "Let's roll, boys. Family's safe." The Hell's Angels roared their engines, thunder shaking the street, power echoing to the whole neighborhood, and then they rode away, leaving Hope behind them. Ion held his new cars to his chest, whispering, "Mama, we're safe now." Sophia kissed his forehead. "Because good people still exist, Ion, even if they look like bikers." Fire if you love the Hell's Angels, then share this video and help us reach the 1,000 subscribers target. Fire, show your love. Like the video, and subscribe to Bikers Hype for more powerful true stories. Fire, share this with your friends to prove you believe in biker brotherhood.